Did anyone else hear that being read? Read the screen, if you could, if you have amazing eyesight, and think, what on earth was going on in that passage? Why does it mention grasshoppers and severed white spines, or whatever it was? Something very strange in there. When the first time I read this passage, I literally thought, what on earth is going on? And you can decide at the end whether I've come to a conclusion about that. But actually, I have to say, the more I've been dwelling in this book, the more I've been looking at this passage this last week, the more God's been speaking, and the more I feel like he's been giving some truths that I hope are for all of us tonight. So hopefully it will make sense in due course. But let me start with a question, which is, have you ever made a bucket list? If you don't know what a bucket list is, that's where you say, these are the things I'm going to do before I die. And this is Forbes' bucket list, sorry. This is Forbes' bucket list of the destinations to go before you die. Sam, pipe down. So, number 1, Forbes say, this is where you should go before you die. Visit the Maldives. Anyone been to the Maldives? Yeah. Or number 2, splash in Niagara Falls. That's a fun one. Visit the Mona Lisa in Paris. Visit the paradise of Bora Bora in French Polynesia. Has anyone ever been there? I saw some photos. It looked great. Anyway, climb the Statue of Liberty. Anyway, that's Forbes' suggestion. And that's something Maggie's done. Wonderful. In our passage today, we're talking about how to live the best life before you die. And it's a bit odd because when you think about the book of Ecclesiastes, if you've been here for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've been talking a bit about how to live, but now we've added on this extra bit on the end, which is it's in the light of eternity. How to live well now, because there will come a time when we'll all go into eternity. And so, King Solomon is writing this book, and King Solomon, if you don't know, is David's son, and he became king of Israel, we think about 950 BC. That's about 3,000 years ago. He became king, age about 17 or 18, when he didn't even have a driving license at this point. He's young. In fact, I think I mentioned before, but Josephus, who was a Jewish historian at that time, he thinks he was even younger, like 15. So this guy is young, but he's become the king of the most powerful nation on earth at that time. And he starts to pray, and God says to him, what do you want? What's on your heart? And his response to God is, I want wisdom. He didn't ask for wealth, didn't ask for fame, didn't ask for all these other things. And because of that, God was so impressed with that he blessed him with great wisdom and also with all the other things that he could have asked for, like the luxuries. And Solomon has all these luxuries and it goes well for a time, but he then starts to take on wives. And these aren't just any old wives. He takes on more than one for a start, and they're pagan wives who worship other gods, and his heart starts to turn away from God. Then he takes on concubines. That's not going to end well. And then he takes on huge amounts of wealth, and his heart turns away from God. And he's tried, if you like, the 4 W's. He's tried wine, women. He's tried getting sort of satisfaction from work and from wealth. And at the end, he's just been saying, look, this is all empty. And throughout this book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon's been grappling with that question. What does it mean to have a full life before you die? What does bring satisfaction? And so here we are in this chapter 11, and he's questioning and he's looking at it. So if you have a Bible, can I encourage you, do open it. We're going to sort of go through it. It'll come up. A few of the verses will be on the screen. And Solomon is exploring this question. And here's what he's going to conclude. Let me give you the punchline. He's going to conclude this. The experiences, the highs, the lows of life, they offer glimpses of full satisfaction and glimpses of the one who created it. And actually, it's only in your Creator that you will find absolute satisfaction and absolute joy. That's where he's going to conclude. Anyway, let's have a go. So this is chapter 11, verse 7. Light is sweet, and it pleases the eye to see the sun. However many years anyone may live, let them enjoy them all. I used to believe that Christianity is when you're serious and when you're stern. But you know, John 10:10, Jesus said, I have come that you may have life in abundance, or as I like to say, in a barn dance. It's joy. That's the point. It's joy. To have fun. Actually, there's something really biblical about saying knowing God is the fullest, most fun life you can have. But then as soon as he says that, he kind of does a side swipe. Look at verse 9, end of verse 9. He says, know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. You're like, ooh, ow. So it's like life is joyful. You can have joy in this life, but judgment is coming. And you kind of think, well, thanks, Solomon. I didn't really want to think about eternity. I'm happy to think about life now, fullness now. But actually, do you see what Solomon's doing here? He's setting all the things we're enjoying or not enjoying in this world. He's setting them in the light of eternity. Actually, all that we experience now, whether it's good or whether it's bad, we need to see it for who it was who gave it to us. I know it seems foreign to us now, but actually age will come. It creeps up on all of us. And actually, we realize that we're not as young as we were. And Solomon is saying to these young believers, actually, there will come a time when you will be judged. But it's not bad news. It's the best news. Because judgment comes when Jesus returns and he has offered each one of us life. He then goes on, chapter 12, he says, remember your Creator in the days of your youth. If you like, this is probably our main theme today. Remember your Creator. Remember the one who said to the waves, you can come this far, but no farther. Remember the one who put the stars in the sky, who designed the plains of Africa, who invented the beautiful effect of the northern lights, who designed the intricacies of a human eye. Remember him. Don't forget him. He's there. He's in everything and he's with you. I love Psalm 8 that says this, when I consider your heavens, this is his father, David speaking, we think. He said, when I consider your heavens, the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars, which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of him? It's incredible, isn't it? The one who did all that, the Creator, he cares for you and he cares for me. He cares about what's going on in our lives when they're difficult and then when they're good. He cares. It's the same God who holds the universe in his hands. It's the same God who sent his son to die, but then rise again to take away all the rubbish so that we don't have to be judged for our sins, but by Jesus' righteousness. That's the same God. He says, remember your Creator. And I would suggest in Solomon's search fulfillment, he's saying, if you live life the way the designer designed it, e.g. the Creator, it's going to bring fulfillment. I've just recently gone to go and see a football match with my son. Can anyone see who this is? I can only apologize. This is Queen's Park Rangers. And I went to go and see a game yesterday, and they drew. It was a bit of a rubbish game, actually. But I was watching the referee, and the referee, he's handing out like yellow cards left, right, and center. There were 3, and people were getting really cross. But he controlled the game brilliantly. And actually, because of his very clear rules, when it was offside, the linesman put his flag up, and then when it was a foul, he said it was a foul. And actually, because of the way the referee controlled that game, the players were able to play, well, some of the time, beautifully. They were able to cross the ball and control it and pass it on. And it's all because there were parameters that allowed them to express themselves. Now compare that to when I was 15. Me and my friends at school in the playground invented this new game. We thought it was very clever, called No Rules Football. As you can probably guess, it's not difficult. You just hack each other down as hard as you can. And so we thought it was a great idea. Anyway, so start playing. And of course, I got massively injured. Everyone got kicked. No one had a clue who was winning. And at the end, we all felt utterly grumpy and annoyed, apart from the one guy who kicked everyone else. Didn't actually enjoy it. When you play the game the way it's designed, it's beautiful. You can express, there's freedom, there's life. And what Solomon is saying here is that as we remember our Creator, we remember the one who designed life. When you bring him into your life, when you bring him into your decisions, when you listen to him, when you're trying to decide what to do and whether you should do that or do that, when you read his word, when you're soaked on it, actually, it brings life. Doesn't mean there isn't darkness, but it brings life. I think one of the most poignant examples of this in the Bible is sex. The Bible talks and says that sex is designed, it says in Ephesians 5, don't have even a hint of sexual immorality. But we know, don't we, that the pain that comes from when people have affairs or when people watch porn and then there's shame, or maybe when they're sleeping with their girlfriend or their boyfriend and you know it's just not quite right, and it can lead to heartache, heartbreak. And that's because it's not been designed and used in the way it's designed. And people have different views on this, but the leaders at this church believe that sex is to be enjoyed between a man and a woman in marriage. That's the way we understand it, but all are very welcome who have different views. But that's how we understand it. And so we think these things can be enjoyed when they're in the best design. They're by the maker's instructions. We can live by God's design. How are you doing that? Proverbs 13, Solomon himself wrote, the way of the transgressor is hard. Actually, I've found that when I've stepped out of line. Maybe you have too. And there's such grace when we get things wrong. There's grace, there's forgiveness for all those things I've mentioned. But that's the truth. We can come back to our Creator because he's designed life and he offers us life. Here's the second thing, maybe the word will come from the screen, is that the word, when you are encouraged to enjoy your Creator, it's about relationship. It's the offer of relationship. I was listening to a podcast recently all about prayer, and I don't know about you, I find prayer hard. Sometimes I love it, sometimes I'm just really struggling with it. I don't know how you find it. But I was listening to this podcast on prayer, and the person said, prayer is not transactional, it's relational. And I love that. What are we offered here? We're offered, and Solomon is saying, it's the offer of a relationship with your Father, with the one who loves you more than you can imagine. I was thinking about the example of a boxing match. Every time the boxer turns around in the middle of the game, they can see in their corner the coach. And they're just in the corner, and I don't know much about boxing, but I think it's something like you get kind of pauses where the game stops. I don't know much about boxing. And then they go back into the corner, and then the trainer comes along and kind of rubs your shoulders and fans you down, encourages you. I've watched some of Rocky, so there we are. But here's the thing. In Christianity, Jesus is in your corner. He's there. He's not going anywhere. He's for you, and he wants to help you in the highs and the lows. When you're struggling to live life as he designed it, when you're struggling and when you're sinning, or when things are just not going well in your work or at home or with your health or in relationships, he's there in your corner, and he offers us life as we come to him. Remember your Creator. Remember the relationship that we've all been offered. Solomon continues in this little passage in chapter 12. It'll come up on the screen, but if you have a Bible, I'd encourage you to look at it, because when I read it, it just made no sense initially. So have a quick look. Solomon is using colorful, poetic language to describe aging. And he says this, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, verse 1. Before the days of trouble come and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark and the clouds return after the rain. And the translation is, Solomon is saying, remember your Creator before you get so aged and old that life just feels really hard. Remember him now. Don't wait. My grandfather, bless him, who's passed away now, lovely Christian man. I remember he used to sit on the floor with my son when he was 3. My grandfather was like 89. He could barely move, but he sat on the floor to play with him. He used to say to me, do you know what? It gets really hard, James, when I can barely move. And my heart broke when I heard that. And I think that's the kind of hunch that Solomon's getting at here for this little bit in verse 1 and 2. It can be hard when you get old. And the encouragement is, don't wait till then. Come to him now. Verse 3, when the keepers of the house tremble, that's referring to your arms, when your arms become a bit weak. And it says, and the strong men stoop. He's talking about your shoulders. When you get older, your shoulders tend to sort of go over a bit. Before you get weak arms and shoulders, he's saying, remember Creator God. Then it says, this is one slightly hilarious, when the grinders cease because they are few. Can you guess what that's about? It's about teeth. When you're getting older, you do lose a few teeth. And those looking through the windows grow dim. He's talking about dimmed eyesight. When the doors to the streets are closed and the sound of the grinding fades, he's talking about how when you get older, you tend to eat a bit less. Your appetite goes down. When the people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint. Again, he's talking about becoming older and the hard of hearing. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the streets. And actually, when you get older, you do tend to get more fearful of things. And the almond tree blossoms. If you've ever seen an almond tree, it goes pure white. It's talking about the white hair. And then this is the one that I saw a few people smile at. And the grasshopper drags itself along. One of the commentaries talked about how a grasshopper has slightly bent knees. I've got no idea if that's true, but it's just talking about that kind of when you're aged. You can decide if you agree with that. And desire no longer is stirred. That's talking about decreased libido. Then people go to their eternal home, and mourners go about their streets. It's in all the aging, or even if you're not old, in the highs and the lows of the life, we will one day go to our eternal home. And that eternal home is an offer of life with the one who is the answer to all that. Because in heaven, we know that, and heaven, by the way, starts from the moment you know Jesus. It starts from that moment. It starts there. It's eternity now, but it's for eternity. And here's the thing. In eternity, we know there will be no crying. There will be no pain. There will be no tears, no death, no mourning. There will be a new heaven and a new earth. That is the answer to all that. And Solomon is saying in the ups and lows, that is where you can go. It's the eternal home. Ecclesiastes 3, a little bit earlier in this book, Solomon says, he, that's God, has set eternity in the human heart. It's an absolutely beautiful verse. It's a truth, isn't it, that we can know him. And there's a tug in us that says, I want to know you. I want to be in relationship with you. If you remember nothing else from this talk, please remember this. Remember your Creator before it's too late. Remember the one who sent his son to die so that you can live. Remember the God that loved you enough to be separated from his son so that he doesn't need to stay in the grave and we don't either. Remember the one who sat at the right hand and is sitting at the right hand of the Father and who says God will bring you into judgment. And it's Jesus' righteousness. Remember him. So, reading Ecclesiastes, this is our encouragement. We can see it in the light of eternity. All that we experience now, all the pain, all the aging, all the difficulties at work, there will come a time when we will be with him in eternity, and he can be with us now. It's a glimpse. It sets everything in context. I'll always remember my brother-in-law was buying a house with my sister, and they'd got married, and they were trying to buy this house, and it basically fell through. It all went really wrong. And my brother-in-law said to me, do you know what? At least I know I've got an eternal home. And he was kind of joking, and they did get the house eventually. But it was the point of saying, actually, that perspective of looking upwards means that now it still hurts, but we have somewhere to go. Let me finish with a final encouragement. And this is actually a poem. I don't often read poems, but I love poetry. And this is a poem all about heaven. And I don't know about you, I think it's really hard to live in the light of heaven because most of us, we just go, well, I can't glimpse it. I don't know what it looks like. I can't get a sense of it. Sure, there's no crying and pain. Is it just a really long service singing Shine, Jesus, Shine? And yet the Bible says it is beautiful. beautiful. We'll be dwelling with our Father. And so this poem, I hope, kind of sums up a little bit of the kind of the joy of heaven. And it's written by Adrian Plass. Adrian Plass, he's much older now, but he's sort of a fairly large chap. And he imagines he imagines what it would be like to get into this heaven. And that's significant because as I read it to you, I hope you enjoy it. It's called The Heavenly Playground. So he says, "O God, I'm not anxious to snuff it. But when the grim reaper reaps me, I'll try to rely on my vision of Zion. I know how I want it to be. As soon as you greet me in heaven and ask what I'd like, I shall say, I just want a chance for my spirit to dance. I want to be able to play. Tell the angels to build a soft playground designed and equipped just for me with a vertical slide that's abnormally wide, with oceans of green PVC. There'll be reinforced nettings to climb on and rubberized floors that will bend so no one can die. If you needn't be shy if you're tempted to jump and land on a friend. I'm going to go mad in the soft, squashy mangle and balmy with balls in the swamp. Coloured and spherical, I'll be hysterical. I'll have a heavenly romp. There'll be cushions and punch bags and tires in purple and yellow and red. And a mushroomy thing that will suddenly sing when I kick it or sit on its head. There'll be fountains of squash and ribena to feed my continual thirst, and none of that stuff about you've had enough. Surely heavenly bladders won't burst. I suppose I might be too tall for the entrance, but Lord, chuck the rules in the bin. If I am too large, tell the angel in charge to let me bow down and come in." Let's pray together.